Hello everybody. We've got a bunch of cars here that are not Mitsubishis and are still on R12 AC. So I figured I'd do a Toyota version, really any Toyota, any Lexus, 86 to 94. So this is the TSB on how to retrofit an R12 system. So I'll go into a couple things here. Some actually surprised me, but others not so much. So you'll need a good set of gauges. This is your basic $30 Amazon or Harbor Freight AC high side, low side, 134A fittings, gauges, fittings, it has it all. We also have our Amazon. It's a little bit overkill. It's 5 CFM, but it's 2-stage, and they had a sale where it's the same price as the smaller single stage. So I prefer a 2-stage. It just gets the vacuum, a better vacuum out of the system. The CFM, that doesn't really matter. You can get away with 3 CFM or the smaller version, but 2-stage I like because you can get a deeper vacuum. 134A, this stuff used to be like $3 or $4 a can. Now it's 11 to 14 or more. Typically you'll need 3 cans, about 3 pounds or so to do an average system. You'll need a retrofit kit. Now there's ones on Amazon I'd recommend. Any of these high pressure side part numbers or low pressure, the kit to retrofit are like, it's like $80 or $90 for the kit. So I'd recommend against that. And instead, there's one on Amazon. It's like $13 or $11. It's these super high quality fittings here. The high side you're not going to use because it's the wrong thread pitch and wrong size. So really you're paying $11 for a really nice low side fitting, high quality. It's not that thin aluminum one. This is actually solid. So this threads right on. Don't forget to take I'll show you how to do that in a second. But essentially this threads on your low side fitting. Low side's going to be towards the firewall usually. Usually it's in a bad place. That's pretty much the bottom line. High side fitting is going to be over here. We'll get a close up of that in a second. So here's your high side fitting right on the dryer, and the dryer is one item that's very important to swap out because there's 30 years of old moisture and dirt and grime and oil in there. It's necessary. Here's a tool you're going to get with your retrofit kit. It's just basically a little tool that allows you to unscrew the valve inside of the low pressure, not the high pressure. We'll leave that one alone. But you just unscrew it and then discard it because the new blue fitting that I showed you has a valve inside of it. So once you screw on your blue retrofit fitting onto the line by the firewall, you want to hook up your gauge set, and a quick synopsis on how this works. This shuts the valve here. There's another one like this on the low side that you've already hooked up. And then this yellow one here on top goes to your vacuum pump. So you screw this into the vacuum pump, and then you open up this, and then you open up the other one on the firewall, turn on your pump. Let the pump run for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever, somewhere in there. When you're done, this is important. You want to close this valve, and then you can remove the line from your vacuum pump. Put it back on here so it seals and nothing leaks out of this gauge set. And then you can open this valve back up, and you'll see the pressure or the vacuum went to about 20 and then back up to 27, 28, somewhere in that region. What that's telling us is there's still a vacuum in the system, so that nothing is leaking down going to zero. It's holding that vacuum, which means we're ready to add the 134A. Now to add the 134A, you have to go back to this yellow line. You'll need to find this adapter, Amazon or Harbor Freight. It's pretty cheap, but this screws onto your can. So just like this, and the cans are self-sealing, not like they used to be where you have to use the whole thing or spray it out. So this thing screws on, and then the thing pushes a pin and then punctures the can, and the refrigerant comes out this end. So out this end again, we're going back to our yellow line. It's going to screw onto the yellow line, and then you'll be able to introduce refrigerant into the gauge set and then into the car. But before all that, we're going to talk about Toyota's TSB, what it means, tips, tricks, all that kind of stuff. So I'll grab that. Alright, so let's say you bring your Toyota or Lexus into a dealer, you want 134A. This is the procedure they're going to follow. Covers all sorts of stuff, 86 to 94, 93. 93, 94 is when they switch to 134A. So they're supposed to put on labels under the hood so you know that it's been converted, and then 2, how much refrigerant to put into the system. 7/16. So here's the problem. All these retrofit kits, 134A you find on Amazon, parts store, they don't have the right high pressure side fitting. So this is a 3 ES24, and all the kits have a larger size similar to the low pressure side of 7/16 20. For some reason Toyota Lexus uses 3 ES24 on the high side. So we leave the high side alone. You can just leave it capped. You could even replace the valve core with that tool. So take out the old one, put in a new one, so that way you know the core is not going to leak, and that's been replaced. But we don't typically need the high side. That's only used to measure the pressure in the system when the system's on, when the system's off, just to make sure that the refrigerant equalizes between the high and the low side. So for filling the system, all we need to know is how many ounces to put in, and then we need to monitor the low side pressure to make sure that's within range. So you're going to cap the high side, forget about it. Because those are hard to find. It's really hard to find a 3 ES24 high side that's not like a pass-through. By pass-through, I mean you're just going to screw an open fitting, aluminum fitting, over the high side port, and then you're still going to use the original high side valve, and it's just kind of janky, and I don't like messing around with it. So here, 134A oil. So typically the ND oil or the PAG oil or ester oil they sell is compatible with the old mineral oil, which is used in R12 systems. So you don't need to worry about draining the oil at the compressor and all that kind of stuff. I guess it just works together with it. Here's a nice chart of all vehicles, vehicle years, which compressor model it has, which O-rings you need, the dryer replacement, so with a part number on the dryer, that's quite handy here, and then which oil. It's either ND oil 8 or, it's only 8 for this one, but I guess you can use an ND9 oil for the TV type compressor, which none of these appear to have. And then it tells you the actual oil fill quantity, cc's. So 100 cc is 3 ounces or so. So which is also interesting. I guess you're putting new oil in the system, but you're not taking any out. So keep that in mind. And then here's your 134A in the charge in grams. So you have to convert the grams to ounces typically. And like I said, it's going to be anywhere from like 24 to 32 ounces, roughly, give or take. But just do your conversion, and it's all right here. So interesting stuff here. Okay, so you're going to recover the R12. Again, if you already have a working R12, I don't know why you would convert it. Just keep using it or fix it. If you have a slow leak, I'd highly recommend keeping R12 because it's definitely colder. Valve core remover, that's that little tool I showed you with the brass coloring. There's the gauge set we talked about. Torque wrench kit, I mean, you don't need torque wrenches. Required parts and materials, we kind of went over that. The new dryer, no O-rings, blah, 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 blah. All 10P compressors require installation of compressor O-rings. It is not necessary to place compressor O-rings on vehicles produced from 93 on. So that's interesting because Toyota is saying to, which I've already done on this, there's 2 O-rings. Let's see if we can get a little better shot of that. there are two O-rings on the two fittings on the compressor. So there's two lines coming out, high side, low side. Toyota specifies to change those two O-rings, but leave everything else alone. So I've changed those, and then we've got a new dryer coming. The dryer comes with two new O-rings, so we're going to stick two new O-rings down there. And that's the extent of it, which is weird to me because in the past I've typically changed all O-rings on all the lines, you know, from the condenser to the intermediary or the connection points all the way to the firewall. But that's a lot of work. You got to take stuff apart. So according to this TSB, you just need new O-rings on the compressor and the dryer, which makes sense because the compressor is going to be really hot mounted on the engine, and the dryer you're replacing anyways. So moving along, refrigerant and oil changes. No, charges, oil charges. So another tidbit you want to know, when you convert to 134A, you're going to use more oil and less refrigerant. Refrigerant charge amounts are less, while oil charge amounts are greater compared to R12. So if you can find a factory specification on your vehicle, let's say it says it needs 36 ounces of R12, typically it's 75% of that. So multiply by 0.75 and you get your new 134A amount. So that is, if your vehicle is not on this TSB, you'll just have to do the math on your own. Slight decrease in performance may be noticed. Again, that's in the condenser design, the fins and everything, and the expansion ability for the gas. It's just a little bit warmer. I mean, low 40 degrees is probably pretty good. Pressures are greater above 70 degrees. There's no need to remove or flush mineral oil from the system. So in the past, I thought you had to get rid of all that stuff before switching. But you just put in the correct PAG or ester oil, and that's it. It mixes. Mineral-based R12 oil remains and circulates in the AC system and does not dissolve. So this is also interesting. There's a cloudy appearance at the sight glass, making it impossible to judge refrigerant charge amounts by using the sight glass method. You're supposed to apply black paint to the sight glass and just block it off completely. So the sight glass is, back in R12 days, you see on the center of the dryer there's like a little circle glass, and you would use that glass when the AC system's on. You could actually see the refrigerant cycling through it, and if there were bubbles in the glass, you were low on refrigerant. Well, apparently it doesn't work that way anymore, so you got to black that out. Again, you're solely relying on the amount of 134A you're putting in the system, and the temperature. So you're going to measure secondary temperature output at the vents to make sure you're not overcharged or undercharged. But very interesting how all this system works here. And then just some basics here: don't handle refrigerant in closed area, eye protection, blah blah blah. Tightening parts, always put some oil on your O-rings before you install your O-rings. And then don't twist the piping when you put the blue port on. So you just want to make sure it's snug, and then I guess that's why they specified torque wrenches here, so you can torque the fitting correctly, but honestly it's just, snug plus a little bit. Okay, and that's really it. I kind of talked about the vacuum. Here it's just talking about installing the fittings, which we went over. Apply adhesive, so Loctite. You're supposed to put some Loctite on the adapter. That makes sense. And then 13 foot-pounds, so it's very minimal. That's it. Compressor. Well, here it says, okay, so 10P compressors. It says remove the compressor from the vehicle. So that's interesting. Remove service plate, remove O-rings. I guess there's a way you can do that without removing it, actually, if you can clear out enough stuff in front of it. But some have like these huge blocks that you can take off of the compressor, and there's multiple O-rings inside. So if you have one of those, I'm sorry, it's a lot of work. I know the Land Cruisers actually have these, but you can service it in the vehicle. So yeah, that's really it. Here's the dryer. We talk a little bit about that. So there's just two types of dryers. There's one with the sight glass on the pipe itself, and then sometimes the dryer itself has the sight glass, which in this version it's gone because this is the new R134A version. Okay, and then using the table, so here is where you add your oil actually. So pour half of the oil into the out port of the dryer. So I'm assuming you put the rest of it into the compressor. I'll probably miss that spot, but essentially if you replace a component such as the dryer, the condenser, evaporator, the assumption is there's oil in here that you're throwing away. So when you put a new part in, you have to add oil to the part, which is interesting because, I mean, the oil is most important in the compressor because that's lubricating the pistons and the inner workings of the compressor. But you're also assuming the oil is going to circulate through the system itself as the compressor is running. So I don't know why. I guess you don't want to put it all in the compressor because you don't want it to like hydrolock or something. So that's it. Then the labels you just put on like I mentioned earlier, and that's pretty much the overview of the 134A conversion on many Toyotas and Lexuses. So the new dryer is coming tomorrow. We will get that in, and then we will put in a charge and show you how that process works. But hopefully this gives you some insight and ability to buy some of the stuff ahead of time before tackling the job. So I'll put the part numbers to the gauge set, the vacuum pump, the conversion kit, all that stuff. Because I'm the same way. Like I want to have everything ready to go before I dive into a project. So we'll be back with the dryer next, which is tomorrow. Alright, so we have our dryer out right here. One O-ring fell off kind of inside there. We want to make sure to get the other O-ring out of the other line. Set that there. Now Rock Auto has Denso Original receiver dryers, 478 2004 part number. These are about $14 on Rock Auto. So here it is. Should be the exact same. There's your two O-rings right here. And I guess Denso is making things in China now. Usually Denso is Japan, but for whatever reason it's China these days. So these O-rings hopefully should be identical to the old ones. Some kits, looks like this one is. Some kits, this one looks thinner though than this one, so we'll have to see. Some kits are just totally off. But the most important part here is your drill holes. So you want to make sure that that little peg hole is in the exact same spot as the original, and it looks like this one is actually, it looks pretty close. We'll see if it seats. It looks almost identical, and again it should be because it's Denso. It's literally the same thing. These are hit or miss if you buy any cheaper ones like the $6 ones or $8 ones. The holes might not be drilled correctly, so keep that in mind. Always try to get Denso. Here's our directions. It's very simple. Remove protective cap and add 20 cc's, so just shy of 1 ounce of oil to the outside of the receiver. So I guess two types. There's one with the union on it, and the other type which we have, it's the one with the lines go into it. So according to this picture, the outside should be the center hole right there. So we're going to put in just shy of 1 ounce into here. And then installation is the same as removal, except reversed. For the lines, they just kind of moved out of the way, and I was able to slide it directly up. And the holders down there, everything came off nice and easy. So I'm going to get the O-ring off of this left line here because it's still on there. lubricate the new ones, put 1 ounce of refrigerant oil in the dryer, and then install it, and then we'll pull one more vacuum before adding our refrigerant. Okay, so here we are. Drew one final vacuum. We're down to almost 30 inches of mercury, or vacuum, however you want to call it. So I've closed this valve. I've got the other side hooked up to the can. And what I'm going to do is pierce the can and then open the purge valve here to purge any air inside of here. So we're going to go like this. You can hear it kind of making a noise. So we're going to purge that just a little bit. And then we're going to open this blue valve, which is going to inject coolant into the system. So there you see 40, 50. Now the retrofit on this takes 31 ounces, so it's going to be 2 cans plus about 6 ounces or so. Hopefully the compressor turns on. I assumed it worked, but we'll see. AC is set to full high inside the car. Okay, it just kicked on. Heard the idle up and everything. That's a good sign. Now as this starts to ice up, you need a bucket of hot water. So I got a bucket of hot water over here. I'm going to dunk this in. That's going to turn it back into whatever it is. I think liquid or no, gas. So we'll turn it back into a gas so it can get sucked in the system. I think that's right. Because if it freezes up, then it's not gas anymore. So we're going to heat this up, get it back to 70, 80 degrees. And then that will empty this can out for us. We're really not going to see any temperature difference inside the car until we get another can in. But it is running, it is circulating. And you can just barely see the refrigerant in the dryer sight glass. So if you look down there, you can just barely see some refrigerant moving inside of that sight glass. Possibly, maybe not. But that tells you the compressor's on and it's moving refrigerant throughout the system. So I'm going to switch the can to another can and then we'll continue the second can. Alright, can 2's going in. Again, always keep it upright because you don't want to put liquid into you don't want this upside down because then it'll put liquid in the system and it could damage the compressor. So with this in, we're going to have approximately 22, 23, 24 ounces, somewhere in there. So we're going to do about a half of a third can to top it off. When it starts to get pretty cold, that's when you want to put it in your hot bucket of water. You can hear the second fan turning on, or the second stage of the first fan. This is a hydraulic fan. So we'll put this in the hot water. Okay. Just a slow process. We'll get through this one and we'll check the temperature inside. And so you can hear, it looks like we're right about 45, 50, let's see, 40, 60. All right, we're right at like, man, this is bright. We're about at 50 degrees. So 2 cans, 50 degrees. We know we're getting close. And typically you should have the thermometer in this far right one because that's the closest to your evaporator core. Turn that back on. Max cold. I'm hoping to get, well actually, I mean if you look it says 40 degrees. There's a little green bar at the, I apologize, it's so terrible for the lighting. there's a little bar at 40 degrees. So I guess that's what they assume the temperature is going to be if you convert to 134A. So we will try to get that a little bit lower and add in another 6 ounces of refrigerant. So this last can is 15 ounces with including the can of refrigerant. So we're going to need to take about 6 out. So I'm going to remeasure, weigh the can, and it should read 9 ounces, and that means we took 6 ounces out of it. So I'll fill this up and check it again. Alright, it is cold in here. It's about mid 40s, I think is the best we got, either between the center vent here or yeah, this thing is ice cold, or this side vent here. Either way, I don't know which one you're actually supposed to test it on, but it's pretty cold. It's right kind of in the green zone that they specify. I can't hear a word I'm saying. It's right in the green zone that they specify, since this is a 134A thermometer and conversion kind of kit. But yeah, that's it. So we are right where we want to be, with about 2 cans, so 24 plus about 5 or 6 ounces, plus the oil we added. So not bad at all. Thanks for watching. I'll do one more shot of our port that we changed. Right down there, you can see a nice blue cover on the port. That's where we add and measure the low side. But that's it. So, any AC questions, let me know. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps. There is actually a Lexus TSB. I'll post the numbers for Lexus models. It shows like the CC of oil and CC of refrigerant. So I'll put that in there in case you have a Lexus, and I'll tell you it all. But thanks for watching. Bye.